The Modern Family.
Most merciful, all praise be to Allah, the Lord of the heavens and the earth, and peace and blessings be upon our beloved Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dear brothers and sisters, we salute you all with the salutation of the people of paradise. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm your host Hatim Al-Absalam, and joining me is
Wa'il Al-Harasi.
Thank you for joining us and tuning in to 90.4 FM in your favorite show, The Modern Family. Today we have another episode of a very important topic. We're going to talk about Down syndrome.
Exactly.
And,
Down syndrome. Down syndrome. Something that the nation knows very little about. Probably just the physical appearance of people. In fact, today I was speaking to two of my colleagues, and both of them were confusing between Down syndrome and autism.
Yeah.
Thinking that they are the same thing.
Most of us do, Dr. Weil. Most of us do,
okay.
and I think it's a learning opportunity for all of us to get to understand what is Down syndrome and what should we know and how should we treat patients with Down syndrome.
And probably they know it by another name, Mongolia.
Yeah, that's
Mongolia.
That's
the most common name. People know that and know the physical side of it. There is quite a lot about Down syndrome other than the physical side, and this is what we would like to explore today. And in the studio we have two parents who are devout parents of children with Down syndrome. On my right I have Ahmed bin Saeed Al-Azkawi. It feels like again introducing a boxing match.
Huh?
Yeah. On my left, on my left I have Fatma Al-Barwani here. So welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hatim, where shall we start? It's a show that we would like to extend, and for 2 days I think, talking about Down syndrome. It's increasing in Oman.
Yeah.
And I think, where shall we start? I'm lost. It's all yours.
I think we need to introduce our listeners to what is Down syndrome at the beginning, and maybe our guests have a better understanding of what is Down syndrome. So we'll leave the floor to them to explain to our listeners. Whether on your right or your left, it doesn't make a difference.
Ladies, Fatma.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Down syndrome is actually, it's a chromosomal defect or disorder, and what happens is, its medical term is called trisomy 21, and basically what it means is, out of one of the chromosomes, it attaches itself to the chromosome number 21, and it has an extra chromosome, so that's why it's called trisomy 21.
So it's genetic.
It's a genetic disorder. It's congenital, which basically means that they are born. All children who have Down syndrome are born with it. You can't get it later, and it's not something that is inherited either.
Okay, so it means that you can detect it from a very early stage in the womb. Is that correct?
It is correct, and for those people, I'm not sure about in Oman, but it is an option that if you wanted to find out if your baby has Down syndrome, it's possible to know it from when the baby's in the womb.
Ahmed was just mentioning something very important before the show. He was talking about detecting and through scan during the pregnancy stage of whether your baby has Down syndrome or not. I think Ahmed can tell us more about that experience.
Indeed, it's in Oman. It's not yet being practiced, but in some other parts of the world, it is detected prior to, rather after conceiving, at a certain stage, as the baby grows in the mother's womb. It could be detected. But then I really think that Down syndrome is, if we were to move away from the scientific definition of the disease and so on, and start reflecting on a person as an individual, I think that becomes very important. Because by definition, people who want to know what is the status of a child inside a womb are people that would probably be hit more by the outcome. So it is more important that a person lives with whatever happens and cherishes that and thinks positively, rather than trying to find out at an early stage. And it's an advice that I would give to any parents. Most people would like to have children. just remember, why do you want to have a child?
Yeah.
Don't make the child a victim of your own ambitions, by thinking that I want a child who's the best in the world, a child who's... Because then it's that hits you later on if you start finding out different things. And therefore what I would say is, I'm not saying I'm against it or with it, but whether such tests should be carried out in Oman or not is really...
The question is, what's the point?
What is the point?
What's the point of having that?
No, Ahmed was saying, what is the outcome of these tests in some of the countries?
The outcome is that if you were to carry out studies related to Down syndrome, and you were to take a sample in Oman, it will be a lot more representative, because the chances of abortions in Oman are very slim, and therefore it truly reflects the percentages of occurrence of Down syndrome.
I was in the UK, and two of my children were born there, and every time we go for a scan, they would ask us, would you like to do a screening for Down syndrome? We say, no, what's the point? Because whether they have Down syndrome or not, it's our child, we love them.
Yes.
Yes. So we will never think of aborting them. And that's the main point. If this is the way, the mentality, that I love my child even before they're born,
yes,
why the point of screening?
And what is so funny is we always learn through management books and that when you have a problem and a challenge, you face that problem. Don't just don't turn your back on the problem. But actually what is happening in reality is people, when they find out at an early stage that they have this problem, whether they consider it a problem or not, then they decide to get rid of the baby, and that's the easiest solution of the problem.
And one would question whether it is an easy solution or not, because killing a child is something that you'll never forget, especially when it's
of course
one of your own.
Definitely.
Whether it's inside a womb or outside, it doesn't matter. But then you'll always live with it. And therefore finding out prior to delivery could be even more complicated. So you might as well just live with it.
Yes.
And cherish whatever that you have.
Yes. Yeah.
I was just, because we belong to a support group for children with Down syndrome, I was just talking to one of the mothers the other day who's having her third baby. Her first baby has Down syndrome, the second one doesn't. And she was telling me, did you know that this option was available in Oman? I said, I didn't know, because personally, when I had my son 11 years ago, I didn't ask, and I didn't know at that time, and I didn't want to know. So although she's a young mother, I think she has concerns because she's not sure whether she'll have another baby with Down syndrome. But as Muslims, we just have to embrace whatever we have, which is what Ahmed's just said.
Yes, exactly. We talked about...
While, can I just add something before we carry on to the next point? Sure. I think there are a few cases where mothers have experienced, they went through scan and they were told there is deformation in the baby and the baby will never survive, and then Almighty God has proved them wrong, and the baby was born safe and there's nothing wrong with them. So I think we should always have faith in the Creator and accept whatever He provides for us, and just let it go.
And I think having faith in the child himself. Something that we learned throughout this program is that we interviewed parents and people affected by some sort of disability, is that you need to believe on yourself as a parent. You need to believe on the child as well, that they are capable. And sometimes it's a really good approach to ignore expert advice. That's what we have realized. That sometimes doctors will tell you what they were taught, but what do they know about your child? As a parent, I believe I know more about my child than what the doctor could tell me. I do respect them, I do take their advice, I take it on board, but I will decide what I do with my child. And many times it proved that the doctor was wrong. Maybe they wanted to take a more conservative approach, but the parents like Ali Al-Maskari we had the other day, who ignored expert advice and helped his child who is deaf, and she will be inshallah the first Omani girl, deaf girl, to graduate as a graphic designer. And she's driving, and she is fully independent. She is totally independent. She has her hearing aid, and she refuses to surrender to the fact that she's a person with disability, and that was the way she was raised. And I think this is what we need to do with children with Down syndrome as well. I was reading in a website, Irish website, it's an Irish organization, and they said it all depends on how much love you give them from day one, how much trust, how much care, love and tender you give them, and not to over babysit them, and don't just give them too much attention to the extent yet to make them feel that they can't do anything themselves. Ahmed and Fatma, you both have different experiences. Ahmed, your son is how old is he?
18 months.
18 months. And your son?
My son is 11 and a half.
He's 11 and a half. So it's good that we would have challenges at different ages today in Oman. And let's focus as a family. If we talk about you, Ahmed, first with your child, take us through as an educated and well-read person, and as a Muslim, first of all, is how was the reaction, and how did you grow and tell your children, other children, about the condition of their brother?
So initially it was the typical shock journey that you go through, the emotional journey that you go through with any unexpected event.
Exactly.
It wasn't anything different from that, and I've learned how to live through it.
Yeah.
The only disappointing thing that I must say is that the very little attention that I got from the doctors when the child was born, when Faris is the fifth out of 5 brothers
MashaAllah.
and sisters.
Yeah.
When he was born, I noticed there's something different about him, and 3 days later, the doctors casually mentioned to me, "Oh, by the way, your child is this," and that's it. She walked away.
Really?
Yes, and
we need to train doctors.
So I told her what is next.
By the way, I'm running courses, inshallah, and I'll mention the fees later on for doctors how to break news.
So it was like that, and my wife had gone through a difficult time. It wasn't just about the child himself. It wasn't just about Faris. It was also the delivery. It was a bit complicated. But anyway, so we tried to kind of keep the news a little bit away from her so that she doesn't get to hear it, and she's just totally fine. But then, of course, the doctors walked in again, and they were like, "By the way, did you know your child was like this?" So now I can laugh about it.
Yeah.
Now I can laugh about it.
Then,
but at that time, it wasn't a joke at all. I hope somebody from Ministry of Health is listening. But anyway, the point is, I got over that, and I think the biggest learning was just to live with the unexpected and treat Faris just like any other child.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, until now, he's 18 months, and we haven't. There's no difference between him and any of the other 4 that we grew up with.
Yeah.
We share the same joys. He's happy. He eats just like his brothers and sisters. We play with him. And then later we got to know about the Early Intervention Center and the Down syndrome community. Through contacts and so on, so we kind of exchange information across.
So you said you found it through contacts and not through the hospital.
Actually, it was my brother. He saw you see, Faris was born. He was born on 12/12/12.
MashaAllah.
12th of December.
MashaAllah.
2012, and the Down syndrome day is the 21st of March. The date was chosen because it's trisomy 21, and you have 3 chromosomes.
Okay.
So it was chosen as 21st of March. And the campaign for that day had started around December. So my brother saw a poster somewhere, and he took a picture of it, and he sent it to me. Then that's how I got to hear about the Down syndrome community in Oman.
The staff in hospital never mentioned anything about early intervention.
I had to Google and get to hear more about it. So that was the initial stage. But to be honest with you, right now, there's absolutely no difference between Faris
MashaAllah.
and his brothers and sisters. I can't complain about anything.
Alhamdulillah, setting an example, Ahmed, alhamdulillah, for how really a person should treat, and I'm sure Fatma as well. Take us through your experience, Fatma.
Well, mine is 11 years on from when Faris was born, but my son is called Zaid, and unfortunately what Ahmed has just said, I can echo exactly the same experience.
Because so it's not a one-off, huh?
Not at all, and I speak to a lot of the mothers, and it's not at all. When I had Zaid, because I had a C-section, so when I woke up from that, as Ahmed said with Faris, I could see that from his features, he looked different. So when I called the consultant, and he didn't even want to tell me what it is, but because I studied abroad, at the time when I was studying abroad, special needs school, they were abolishing special needs school and introducing children with disabilities into mainstream schools, just as I was leaving the O-levels, which is the equivalent of GCSEs here.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what Down syndrome is. I've lived with it overseas. Unfortunately, when I had Zaid here, there was no support, or there was very little support. I got to find out from another lady who also has a child with Down syndrome, and that there is such a group. The doctors didn't know about it. Anywhere I went to didn't know about it. When I had the baby and I called my husband and I said, come, and he said, what? And I said, Zaid's got Down syndrome. What's Down syndrome? And I said, Down syndrome. And he said, no. I said, okay, let me try my sister. And she came. Unfortunately, automatic reaction was we cried. We cried together, very, very emotionally upset because we didn't know what to expect. Not because my son had Down syndrome, but I didn't know how in Oman, in the Middle East, what are the facilities? What are the resources? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
How is he going to be helped? And once I got over the crying, and then we just got on with our lives.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Of course, now you have these associations. At that time, what did you have?
There was this association at that time. I believe it started in 2003. So he was born at the end of 2002. So I started him with early intervention at the age of 6 months. So he had physio, he had speech therapy, and other kind of intervention things at an early age. And I have to say, I really do stress that you have to start any kind of intervention with children with disability from the day they are born. When the lady has come out of 40 days, really she must start with the physiotherapy, even the speech therapy, because these are therapists who are giving you the tools and skills to be able to do it at home. I don't, very much like Ahmed, I don't treat Zaid any differently. But what's helped me is because we do things that I've learned from the speech therapist and the physiotherapist, we do it at home. His 2 sisters and his brother knows what he has, and they're not allowed to treat him differently because I don't want that. He's got to cope just as everyone else does. And he struggles, but everyone else would struggle, anyone would struggle, and we give him that extra time, but he's not given any favoritism.
What would have been the ideal situation when you gave birth to Zaid? In the environment, in the hospital, in the staff, everybody around you, what would have been the ideal situation for you?
I think rather than the doctor running away from me as if it was something tragic or something very a stigma, I would have liked him to come to me and said, yes, your son does have Down syndrome, and these are the options in Oman. He didn't know, I didn't know, we had to search a lot for it. So that would have been my ideal.
It's really strange.
So typically when I start Googling Down syndrome and all that right after the experience, and I looked at different countries, for example, in Canada, they've got a leaflet that they normally sit with the parents and take them through it and explain what it is and whom to contact and the rest of it. The counselling from the hospital starts immediately. It's counselling.
Yeah.
It's not a disease that needs to be treated. It's more of counselling. Australia has the same system in other parts of the world. The information is provided to you, they take you through it. Thank God we live in an area where we've got access to internet, we can use computers, but I'd really like people to go beyond that and start looking at areas in Oman where people don't have access to computers, and imagine what would the shock be to them. I'm sure it would be magnitudes greater.
And I think even culturally...
so the counselling part is even more important when you go outside Muscat.
You know what I think? I think what we should do, Hatem, is that we dedicate next shows as well to talk about Down syndrome, but focus on the other area. Today what we would like to focus on is on your lives at home. We would like to transfer those experiences to everyone else outside who is listening to us today. And next door, we promise, inshallah, is to also talk about Down syndrome. We would like to talk about facilities. What is actually needed. Because from what I hear from you, and we are all here learning from you both, is that we absolutely have nothing. Because we're talking about an experience 11 years ago, which is same experience just a year ago.
Almost identical.
Yeah.
So we haven't moved a step forward. Where is the Ministry of Health? What is it doing? The numbers are going up. I've read it in the news 2 days ago, or 3 days ago. I've read it in the news that the numbers are going up. Okay, don't tell me just numbers. I need to know what is it that you are doing for me, for my child.
To have a normal life.
To have a normal life, to have a dignified life. That's what it's all about. Because the society does not give you, it's not really a good look that it would give to a child with Down syndrome. I've grown up in an area in Muscat where there was a man with Down syndrome. And we were told that this man is mad. Just because he had Down syndrome. هذا مجنون. And I still remember that person. He wasn't. And everyone was treating him as if he was an animal. And it seems that even the doctors, when they shy away, not telling you, they're just echoing that ignorant approach towards these people. These are not disabled people. These are, I think what we need to do is look at these people as people with abilities, abilities that are different from ours. These are people who need attention and who doesn't need attention. I need attention from everyone, from my mother, from my wife. So it makes me exactly like anyone else. And the person with Down syndrome is exactly the same.
Typically, the average age of a person with Down syndrome is increasing, which tells that there's a way of treating it. I'm not sure if such statistics exist in Oman or not, but the average age is increasing. There's certain conditions or physical conditions related to the heart or the hearing, I think, in certain aspects that are normally diagnosed after the child is born, and those now could be treated.
Yes.
So there's certainly big hope in terms of a Down syndrome individual being totally independent. We've seen signs of that in Europe. People with Down syndrome who have their own lives, they live in their own houses, they grow to later ages, they work in certain areas. They
have careers, they have families, they have children.
Yeah, so we just need to work on it, and I think a big part of that could also be played at home and within the community and the society. And then, of course, the educational system and the rest of it, that has to be there to support it.
Yeah,
I think if, from my personal experience, what I would really like is for the community, people in Oman. I know it's very difficult I know this is not a typical experience. I know it's running through most of the families with children with Down syndrome. They're keeping them indoors. They're not taking out the kids or the individuals out. And why? It's because when you do go out, and I experience this, when I go out with Zaid, people are staring.
Yes.
So I'm not sure what they're staring at, but he just goes on, does what he wants to do. He plays if it's playing, if it's something else, he'll do whatever he needs to do. So we need to really kind of penetrate our community, and I'm not just talking about the Omanis, people who live in Oman, to accept our children or our individuals as individuals. There's nothing wrong with them. As you said, Wael, they're not mad. They have abilities in other areas and they can develop. They need assistance, but it's there. It's possible. We've seen it, and we just need our community to be more passionate and sympathetic to our children and individuals.
One of the things I was reading is the memory. They have very strong memory, visual memory as well. Children with Down syndrome. It's one of the things that a parent could build on when teaching. Of course, the severity changes between one child and another.
Yes, and you know what? I don't know how correct am I in this, but I've heard that they're also called happy children, and you could see them. They're typically happy in most cases. So if you're the type of person who's always serious, having a child with Down syndrome helps.
Will cheer you up.
They cheer you up.
Absolutely.
They keep you happy at home. The other thing is, as a community, and this is not built on facts, but it's probably more perceptions. I think there's certain individuals who believe that it's a reflection of their own genes, having a child with Down syndrome, which is a totally wrong perception. A Down syndrome child could be born from any parents. They don't have to be related, by the way.
Yeah.
It is still not known what are the reasons behind it.
Yeah.
It is not hereditary, so you can't inherit it from anyone.
It's not contagious as well.
It's not contagious.
But you were just one of you was mentioning about school.
It could happen to anyone, absolutely anyone, and there's no reason whatsoever to treat your own child differently just because the child is diagnosed with Down syndrome. I mean, perfect people could grow up, and certainly, God forbid, something happens to them. They could go through mental stress. Disabilities could happen at a later age. The way you treat the individual, if such a thing happens to them, is still the same as how you treated them before.
Yeah.
So you should raise your child the same way that you raise their brothers and sisters.
Dear listeners, you are listening to The Modern Family. We intentionally did not mention the number this time. I know I've heard a lot of complaints that we don't mention the number. The reason is that we have two guests here today and we are eager to listen from them and learn from them. But anyway, the lines are open and you can call us on 2460
2058.
602058. That's 24602058. You can call us anytime. We'll take a very quick break, and the lines, as I said, are open. Please call us. I'll repeat the number again. It's 24602058.
The Modern Family. The Modern Family.
Amazing it feels to love you. I wish that everyone could see how your love has set me free and made me strong. Oh Allah, I'm forever grateful to you. Whatever I say could never be enough. You gave me strength to overcome my uncertainties and stand firm against all the odds. You are the one who did revive my soul. You shone your light into my heart. So pleasing you is now my only goal. Oh, I love you so, I love you so, I love you so. Now I know how it's like to have your precious love in my life. Now I know how it feels to finally be at peace inside. I wish that everybody knew how amazing it feels to love you. I wish that everyone could see how your love has set me free and made me strong.
Dear listeners, welcome back to The Modern Family. I'm Hatem Al-Absalam with Wael Harrasi and our distinguished guest. We've been talking about Down syndrome and the experience of the dearest parents that we have with us in the studio. To remind our listeners, whoever wants to share their experience with us, you can call us on 24602058. We're back with you, Fatima, and we wanted to know the very beginning. Once you have found out that your child is a Down syndrome child, for our listeners to understand, what's the difference between a normal child and a Down syndrome? Did you find any difficulty? Before you take that question, I think we have a call. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Sir, good evening. I am Ramakrishnan here.
How are you?
I'd like to know more about children with disabilities or different abilities. Mm-hmm. So is there any center in Oman so that we could come and know more about it?
Is there any center for disability?
You can give us so that after this session we could further continue tomorrow or day after with the concerned people.
Yes, we have quite a few centers in Oman for disabilities. We have the Association of Disability in Al-Qurum, and we have the early intervention center as well in Adeba, and I think in regions as well we have Al-Wafa centers.
But the best, I think, here in Muscat, if the caller is from Muscat, is the Early Intervention Center in 18th of November Road in Al-Adeba, just after Sultan Center, if you know it. There is also the Down Syndrome Parent Support Group. Fatma, do you have a location for the group? Do you have a building?
Yes.
That people could visit?
Yeah, at the moment what we're doing, and we've been doing this for quite some years now, that the Omani Down Syndrome Parent Support Group is for the children, although the name implies it's a parent support group, but it's for the children with Down syndrome, and it's actually located in the Early Intervention Center's school. So it's the same. It's in the same premises. It's near the Sultan Center in Adeba. In fact, if you just go from the car park and go straight down, that's where the center. What we do is we meet every Sunday from 4:30 till 7. We have a number of therapists, a speech therapist, a physiotherapist, and language therapist. And now we've introduced just recently for this session an educational therapist. Many of the children from birth up to whatever age are more than welcome, as long as they have Down syndrome. We are more than welcome to welcome them into the support group. Let the families start with their children with early intervention from the day they're born. It's very, very important.
And I would really also like to applaud the expatriate families in Oman, because we've had callers regularly from expatriate families wanting to contribute into voluntary work, and I salute you. You are part of Oman, you're part of this country, so thank you very much for your calls and concerns, and you're willing to help. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Fatma, we were with you at the point, at the infant stage. How did you treat the baby? What did you have to do extra to care for Zaid? And what did you have to learn?
What advice would you give to new parents?
For myself, because Zaid was born with 4 holes in his heart, we had to overcome that problem first. And I call it a problem because it's a medical one. It's not anything that affects him intellectually. So we had to have regular hospital visits, and he had to actually have those holes closed, which he did at the age of 6 months. Once he had done that, then we focused on the physiotherapy, because most of the babies who are born with Down syndrome have these flimsy, soft muscle tone. So it has to be progressed, and the muscles have to be strengthened for them to be able to walk, to sit up. For Zaid, he was not able to walk until he was 3 years and 1 month, which is actually very late if you compare it to other children with no disabilities. I don't actually, for myself, and to me there isn't anything called normal. So I don't compare Zaid as a non-normal child against a normal child, because we have to ask, what is normal? What is normal? What is the definition of normal? So my son has a disability where he can do some things and other things he can't. So we started off with the physiotherapy and speech therapy from extremely young age. As soon as he had the heart operation done, he was 6 months old. We started these weekly physio and speech therapy, and even with the physiotherapy, he was still not able to walk until he just had reached 3 years and 1 month. But he did it. He did it in the end. So it wasn't an obstacle, because you could sense he was frustrated, because Zaid is number 2, and then I had his sister 1 year and 2 months later, and his sister could walk faster than he could, so he was frustrated because he couldn't catch up with her. But once that was over and done with, he's just like the others.
So message number 1 to parents and to listeners: be patient.
Very much so.
Be patient and be supportive, be positive. Definitely. Show them positive and believe in your children.
And understand their frustration of the child. This is very important, because if you ignore the frustration of the child, then this will build up, and then maybe it will affect. They will lose hope in being able to overcome this challenge.
One of the challenges I was reading on children with Down syndrome is that sometimes, because of these flimsy muscles, they can't actually walk immediately, and they will be, even when they start walking, they will be very unstable. And they go into a very adaptive mode where they try and fix the way they walk by spreading their legs and maybe their feet facing outwards, and they feel much more stable that way, and they start walking with a stiff knee. If they continue that way, then it might cause problems later on when they're grown up. So here also early intervention, family and parent intervention to stop their children doing that and teach them to walk in a normal way, in an appropriate way, so it doesn't affect them later on. Yes, it might take longer, but I think it's more healthy for children.
But Ahmed said something very important, where you have the leaflet or the doctor sits with you and tells you these steps to be taken. Just imagine if the child is born in the interior or places where you don't have centers, you don't know that your child needs to go to physiotherapy, and then you just assume that the child is going to grow up and become normal like any other child, and then you end up
I think Hatem, if we go to the interior and we go and discuss that, I think that the show will be very negative, like the previous shows with our brother Yahya. It was really disappointing how the treatment, they refused even to refer his child to another hospital. And he was refused early intervention, so he had to pay himself and leave the country for treatment. So let's keep the positivity and stay out of that, and let's pray and hope that our ministry actually does something. Not only Ministry of Health, but also Ministry of Education, Ministry of Social Development, who really need to do something. Ahmed.
But I think just one last point on that, and then I'll try to move away from it because it's not the subject of our discussion. But I really don't think it's a governmental or ministerial issue.
Mm-hmm.
A person who becomes a doctor is a well-educated person to learn themselves on how to counsel people.
Yes,
as a doctor, you are a very well-educated individual who is smart enough. Yeah. So just like as we talk about it now, what I expect is that any doctor would Google the way we Googled and find out that, in other parts of the world there are leaflets and there's counseling. And the individual and the doctor would do it in Oman. They don't need to get instructions on how to do it. They could educate themselves. Okay? With respect to Faris at home, Faris's medical condition was fine, alhamdulillah, when he was born, so there were no issues there. Until now, he's growing up as a normal child, a little bit late in terms of walking. He goes through physiotherapy. We visit the early intervention center regularly. We also visit other centers at home. We do some exercises for him. He's coping, he laughs,
How is his interaction with other children? Let's start from outside the house when you visit.
He's just fine. So he recognizes me, he recognizes his mother, he recognizes his brothers and sisters, he smiles when he should smile, he rarely cries, and when he cries you feel sorry for him because he rarely does it, so something must have really upset him.
Yes.
He likes going out. That is something that's quite interesting, because most children run after you when they see you walking outside and you want to leave.
Okay.
And that is something that he does. So, for example, if he sees me, getting into my car and leaving home, he starts screaming he wants me to take him. So the interaction is very normal.
Not only the interaction, it's recognizing the meaning of things. So
he could catch things. He could hold his own bottle to drink milk.
So intellect and emotions are...
The intellectual emotion is fine. The only thing that I've seen there's a slight delay is in the walking. His muscles, though, are more or less fine. That's one thing that we were told, actually, when he was born, that his muscles were fine. I think the bones, rather the joints, maybe need a little bit more strengthening so that he could control them and walk. It's also important to mention that just like non-Down syndrome, because I don't want to use the term normal as if it's normal and abnormal.
Yes, of course.
But those that are not diagnosed with Down syndrome could be different from each other. The same applies to children that are diagnosed with Down syndrome. They differ in a big way. I've seen a Down syndrome child, of course, over the internet, winning a swimming competition.
Great.
Okay, I've seen them playing American football or like rugby. Yeah, they've joined what we call Kashafa in Oman.
Scouts.
Boy Scouts, yeah. So they are different, they're not all the same, and uprising really makes a difference, and being closer to the child also makes a big
What
difference.
about speech?
Speech, Faris hasn't started talking yet, but he screams, he laughs.
Yeah.
So
It takes a while, I think, but I think Fatma here could help us with that.
My experience with Zaid, he has he speaks all of the words that you can imagine. We speak to him in 2 languages, but we started with that from the beginning. And I stress that I think it's either you do it from the beginning, but to start, if the child is already maybe 4 or 5, maybe they'll get confused. I know that a lot of the speech therapists that I've spoken to, don't in any way recommend that you do this, because they find that already one language is hard enough for the child to bear. Again, it's one of these things that I decided not to take that advice, and I started from the beginning, and he copes with both languages. Not everyone can understand him. The immediate family, my extended family, Zaid goes to a normal mainstream school. They understand him there. And in terms of even with the sports activities, he used to do taekwondo. He's been swimming. He loves horses. He's been horse riding. He loves being outdoors. He loves being outdoors. Alhamdulillah, yani. Even though I was just earlier said that there's a lot of stigma when I do go out, when we go out as a family, there's a lot of people who stare at him, but you have to get over that and just say, well, he's here to stay. Alhamdulillah, this is what Allah gave me, and this is what is for us.
Fatma, how does Zaid feel when people stare at him? Does he express this to you?
No, he doesn't. In fact, he doesn't even notice. It's me as the mother who notices, because I don't know if it's something. He just gets on and plays with things. Even his older brother and his sisters don't say, "Mama, why are people staring at Zaid?" Because it's just something. There's nothing wrong with him.
Yes.
So,
We'd like to remind the listeners to call us on our show. The number is 24602058. That's 24602058. Ahmed, you said that Faris is the 5th, and he has 4 older brothers and sisters. How do they play with Faris, and do they know he's different? Do they treat him any different?
No, they haven't noticed anything. Remember, the oldest one is 11, or soon to become 11. The other ones are 6, 4, and 3. So they play with him just like as a normal child, and I take things as they come. You just live with it.
Yeah.
You don't need to make a speech about it or anything.
Exactly.
And if needed be, we'll talk about it. If there's no reason, we just don't talk about it. But they like him. They still see him as their youngest brother, and they play with him. And he's closest to the sister that is right. The one that is just above him. Yeah,
I'm sure there might be some funny stories there to tell. So you can think of that after we take this call. Assalamu alaikum.
Hello.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How are you this evening?
We're fine, thank you. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. I'm so happy to listen to this program. It is very productive and very educating for those parents who have got kids with disabilities.
Thank you very much. We are even happier to have you calling us.
Yeah, and it's a very good program that you thought of those parents who are really suffering with these parents. I wish the Oman keeps more rehabilitation centers for this, and at least they consider them as the parents really suffer.
Yeah. Do you have a child with disability?
I've got my daughter who is diabetic. She's already been taken care of, but I find my situation, but hearing at the program of those kids who are having the Down syndrome, yes, I think it's a good program that the country has focused on.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And this is what we're trying to get through, is spread the message about how to live with a child with disability at home, and that we should not.
It is a good education skill that has already been published over the radio, but I highly as well recommend if there can be some handouts, some advertisements for those parents. At least they know how to where to go and how to handle the situation.
There are a lot of brochures and books and handouts are available now.
Where can we get them?
If you go to the Early Intervention Center, the Early Intervention Center in Al-Adaiba, it's on the 18th of November Road, just after Sultan Center, as you come from Seeb towards Al-Ghubra, as if you pass, so it's just after that. You have a building where they have Starbucks. Few buildings after that you'll see the Early Intervention Center on your right hand side. It's on the same side that Sultan Center is. It's not far away. So I'm sure they'll be able to help and will be able to support in any way they can. And I'm sure there are a lot of leaflets there. Thank you very much, sister, for your call.
It's my pleasure. My name is Fatma Said.
Fatma Said. Thank you very much, Fatma.
It is my pleasure. Please extend my special thanks to whoever has thought of broadcasting this program.
Inshallah. Thank you very much. Ma'as-salam. So you're not off the hook, Ahmed, so we need a story.
What shall I say?
Okay, you
the story that always the one thing that always sticks to my mind is when I started noticing Faris trying to call my name even when he sees me leaving home, wanting me to take me. He wants me to take him with me outside. That is something that I started noticing, and it always, you know. But apart from that, it's the normal children's stories, you know.
The children themselves, the way they treat him. Have you ever heard them trying to do something with Faris or play in a way?
No, they don't try to mess around with his toys or anything. You know, he still doesn't know how to punch.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll teach him that.
Yeah.
I'll teach him that. No problem at all.
Yeah. But he certainly enjoys playing with his, and he doesn't like sitting. That's the other thing, which is typical of children, right? So even if you don't walk outside, if you pass by him and he's sitting, for example, in his pram, or you know, he would always jump and wants you to pick him up so that you can walk outside.
Is there?
He likes going out in the garden.
Yeah.
A typical child.
Is there anything to do with mirrors? Do children with Down syndrome have anything? Do they like? Because I've heard that some people have redecorated the child's room and have a lot of mirrors because
yes, I've heard about something like that. Yes, I've heard about it, but I'm not sure how effective. We've tried it. Apparently it starts kind of getting them more active by looking at themselves on the mirror. So they look at themselves, and then if they move their hand, they know that, you know what, my hand has moved, so now let me try and move my head, let me try to move this. We've tried that, but we haven't seen anything abnormal with respect to his movements.
Maybe it takes time. So, it's a gradual thing that they
and at a younger age. It was recommended like when he was a few months old.
And you know, I'm not a doctor or anything, but from what you mentioned is that if he feels normal in front of a mirror and all of these special things that you put, it's like a sign that the syndrome itself is not that severe with Faris. It's a good sign, and inshallah he'll grow up to be a very productive citizen.
I think it goes back to what we were saying before, that each case is different.
Yeah.
And you just live with it and do what is best.
And manage your expectations,
and don't be very patient. Enjoy the moment. I think that's extremely important. Don't start thinking about, you know, what happens when my child becomes 40 and I'm not around, or what happens when my child starts looking for somewhere to work. And you really can't control that. Just like how you couldn't control the birth of the child to start with, you can't control what would happen 20 years later, not even a few months later. So just live the moment, enjoy it, and do what is best for everyone.
We don't think about that, Fatma, but now he is moving into his teens.
Yes.
Zaid.
The challenging period.
What's going through your mind as a parent? Do you think of the next 3, 4, 5 years and his transition to be an adult?
I think of it because I think, okay, how do I know once he gets to the puberty stage, how do I explain that to him? It's going to be different. I know that's going to be different. And also because he has, at the moment at home, Zaid is very submissive. He has a younger sister, the one who's the next one from him, who treats him like a little mother. She's the little mother, and he does everything. He's very submissive to that. And now I feel that I need him to be a bit more confident. You know, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to do. And he only gets like that when he's angry with them for doing something. But I want him to have, he has a personality, but I want him to be a more confident person and just embrace whatever it is that he's got. But I do think about puberty, because I think with any child who's going through puberty, that in itself is a challenge. So I think about, how am I going to explain whatever hormonal imbalances he will feel to him? I guess that I have to leave that to his father, though.
I think his dad was quiet all the time, and we need to give him a chance.
By the way, his father is here. His father, Ahmed Al-Jabri. And inshallah we'll have him inshallah in our next show. If we had 2 hours, maybe we would have had Ahmed here. Thank you, Ahmed, for being so quiet. And so okay, you thought of how would you increase his confidence, or how would you do it?
For now, it's just by continuing going to school. As I said, he goes to a mainstream, a private school that has, alhamdulillah, they've accepted him. He's in class 1. He's doing well. He gets homework. He gets the same challenges as the other kids in class 1. I do a lot of sitting down with him after work. We do the homeworks. He revises for assessments. I do it either in a visual way, in a very simple way. He doesn't always understand it, but every child is different. Like Ahmed said, just because they have Down syndrome, not every child is the same. So for me, giving him confidence is by continuing him in the school stream.
One very important question. Do you get mad at him?
Yes, I do. Because I don't treat him differently. So if he doesn't get any
special treatment,
not from his mother, maybe from the others, certainly not from my daughter, who's the one who's his little mother. He might get it from his father, but he doesn't get it from his mother.
Okay,
that's for sure.
That's good, because one thing that we learned here is that never feel sorry for a child. Never feel sorry. So if you feel that they need to be, let's say, you need to be mad at him in any way, or disciplined, just discipline them.
Do they have an advantage over children who don't have Down syndrome? Do they have a special character that you noticed, special ability that they have?
Happy children, that's one Ahmed
joyful.
mentioned. Very joyful.
Yeah.
Very joyful.
Very joyful.
Around Zaid, the people who do know him, he's loved by many of the teachers at school and in the family, even outside of home, for those people who don't stare, but other people will actually embrace him and talk to him, and he'll try to respond back to them with other things. So yeah, they are happy children, but they can also get angry, and I don't mean angry aggressive. I mean get angry just as any other person could do.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ahmed and Fatma. We have opened up, and thank you for opening up and talking about private lives and about family issues. Sensitive, probably a lot of families would not be able to talk. So thank you very much for sharing your experiences, and I hope and I wish and I pray for Faris and Zaid and all other children with disability and Down syndrome to cherish in Oman, and we make Oman a better place for them, and hopefully it will be the best place for any child with disability. This is a very humble start, our program here trying to start and highlight these issues, and hopefully inshallah in the future we'll have more practical efforts and not just talking in the radio. So dear listeners, we come to the end of the show. We will continue next Tuesday on the same topic, Down syndrome, the challenges in Oman. From me, Wa'il Al-Harrasi
and Hatem Al-Absalam.
Assalamu alaikum.